Hey everyone, it's Bennett Forrest with the Week 7 edition of the ForrestLand MishMash Fantasy Football League Weekly Recap, also known as the Bennett's Team Sucks. But because I'm such a dedicated commissioner, I'm going to continue to do a weekly recap anyway edition because my team does suck. But I'll get to that in a minute. It was overall a very low scoring week for fantasy. And, of course, if you a football fan like everyone else is, including myself, you've heard all the stories about why the ratings are down. Is it it's definitely not the Kaepernick thing. I mean, anybody who thinks it's Kaepernick is crazy. But the election, the Cubs in the World Series factor, the attrition of, you know, people watching the Red Zone channel like me who don't watch the games as much and just stick the Red Zone channel on. But honestly, a lot of it is just there's some shitty teams out there, and the level of play is crappy. I didn't watch any of the Monday night game, or really the Sunday night game. It was dramatic at the end, but the games are sloppy. There's penalties. There's no flow to the game. There's a lot of bad coaching decisions. So really, I mean, honestly, the primetime games have sucked, and a lot of the games have just been really poorly played. So that may have a lot to do with it. And especially this week, you'll see no one really even barely scored above 150. And it was a really low scoring week. So, but a lot of competitive games. Let's get into it here. We have Mandarino getting just enough Monday night to get their second win of the year. They were on a 5-game losing streak, so they were definitely due to bust out. So a couple things of note here of it being a close game. Number one is going into Monday night, Mandarino only needed about 3 or 4 points out of Brock Osweiler and Lamar Miller to win. As you can see, didn't blow the doors off by any means with 13 points between the two, but it was enough to get the 155-146 win. Much needed win for Mandarino. Meanwhile, Cartel are having a tough year. They fall to 2-5. I do want to give a special shout out to Dolphins Homer, and team owner Jeff for drafting Jay Ajayi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He was definitely on a lot of people's boards as a sleeper pick, late round pick. What's the guy name? Oh my God, I'm blanking. The guy who retired, the former running back for Houston, who's now on the Dolphins, who just retired. I'm totally spacing on the name. I'm going to keep going, but you know who I'm talking about. Everyone had Jay Ajayi as the backup to him in case his season was derailed by injuries, which is most of his seasons have been. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name, but anyway, all kudos to Mandarino for drafting Jay Ajayi in the 14th round. Definitely a late pick. But as you can see, none of these other people, including my pick of Marcus Wheaton, have done anything this season. So good pickup, good draft of Jay Ajayi, and that may turn the season around. Also, Matt Forte, who's had a pretty mediocre year, started off strong and had a bunch of mediocre weeks. He gets 30 points for the Jets. And as you can see, Jay Ajayi with 2 straight 200-yard games. He's had 5 touchdowns on the year. He could be a sleeper for MVP and draft of the year, and we'll see if Mandarino turns his team around with the 155-146 victory. Okay, so we had some other fairly close games. We had Third and Oolong go over 500 by defeating Graceland, 155-137. Did have C.J. Anderson Monday night. That was not needed. That was a little bit of gravy. But Graceland, even with Melvin Gordon going off, Drew Brees and started Brandon Cooks this week. It was a little odd that last week did not start Brandon Cooks. So Drew Brees, Melvin Gordon, and Cooks really carrying the team. Interesting with Melvin Gordon was he didn't score a single touchdown last year. And, of course, you should have known, because he was pretty good and he got some yards, that this year, of course, he'd be a touchdown machine. And you can see he's got like 8 touchdowns. I think he might even have 2 receiving touchdowns as well. So it's a total Murphy's Law situation there, but good for Graceland for drafting Melvin Gordon. and team's looking pretty good. I mean, Drew Brees is, their team's pretty bad, but they score a lot of points. Odell Beckham's hit and miss, but he's going to be there all year. So tough loss for Graceland, but by no means is the season over. They've got a lot going for them. Third and Oolong gets above 500, getting a nice, well-rounded 155 points. So both those teams are 4-3. We'll go to the Travelers, leading the Mish division by defeating the Riot. Only 19 points from Tom Brady. Again, just a lot of low scoring throughout the week for every team. But the Travelers get enough from Randall Cobb Thursday night and David Johnson, again, for getting a ton of yards and a bunch of receptions, even though no one scored a touchdown Sunday night. David Johnson did have some good stats for Arizona. So the Travelers go to 5-2. Baltimore Riot go under 500. We have the injury risk going to 6-1, and the very solid 46 to 133 point win. Of course, Julio Jones has been awesome. Ty Hilton is actually, he was very inconsistent last year. He's been pretty good. He's had, as you can see, 300-yard games, 4 touchdowns. So T.Y. Hilton's been pretty good, and everybody's crapping on Andrew Luck, but look at their record and look at the stats. They're, in spite of the defense and all the other problems, Indianapolis is a pretty good team. And we'll see. As long as you have a good quarterback, you're in it. You have a chance to win every week. Of course, that negated most of Andrew Luck's points here for the Stallions. Russell Wilson didn't do much Sunday night, of course. So the Stallions fall to 3-4. And injury risk, 6-1. Clearly the team to beat in the MASH division. And last, and certainly least, is the Colon Cleansers defeating the pathetic Slim Aussies, 124-92. Couple quick things. At the last second, I did bench Leclerc Blount, which was a mistake. But I did put Jeremy Hill in its place. The mistake was not benching McCoy, who was questionable. And then, as I've mentioned in several other weeks, Matt Jones is just so up and down every other week. 117 to 31, 135 to 27, and a fumble. Just so inconsistent, just like the Slim Aussies. Of course, Brian Hoyer getting hurt, nothing you can do about that, so I'm not kicking myself there. And again, I did put Jeremy Hill in place of Blount, so Jeremy Hill, that was not the reason. But I guess looking back, I should have benched McCoy. But of course, questionable coming off a 3-touchdown game. You got to think McCoy's going to play and do well. I will also mention that DeAndre Hopkins has been a huge disappointment. I remember getting back to the draft, if you go up to the first round, I had the pick right here, number 8, and I was going between Hopkins and Elliott. And of course, my thought process was Elliott is going to be good, but he's a rookie. DeAndre Hopkins has had 2 great years with crappy quarterbacks, and I never thought that Osweiler was going to be great, but I thought Osweiler would at least be serviceable and get on DeAndre Hopkins the ball. But Hopkins, and I got to blame this on Osweiler. I mean, he had one game, he got his one catch in like the 4th quarter. I mean, he's had 3 touchdowns, but man, he should be doing better. Brock Osweiler, I'm blaming it on him. So the Slim Aussies can't break 100. A little bit of tough luck with Brian Hoyer getting hurt and McCoy, but just inconsistency all around. Again, not going to complain too much about Blount on the bench. The Colon Cleansers didn't do much, and I was looking really good going into Sunday's game with Jordy Nelson only getting 1 point Thursday night. So when I start off the week with 27 from Rodgers, and only one of those points went to Jordy Nelson, you got to think looking pretty good, but just no other points, and just enough for the Colon Cleansers. They go to 4-3. So I think the Slim Aussies, unfortunately, may be the worst team in the league. So let's take a look at the standings. We do have a lot of still bunched up in the middle, so even the Slim Aussies and Mandarino are still in it. And of course, I like to sort it by points to see if team's getting extremely lucky. And as you can see, pretty much down the line, the standings reflect the points scored. And Third and Oolong should definitely be at least over 500 with the second most points. So that's really the only discrepancy there is they're really close to injury risk, only a 2-point difference, yet injury risk is 6-1, third in oolongs 4-3. So anyway, enough bitching for me. I'm going to get off now and go home and watch some baseball. As always, check the standing or check the waiver wire, check your injury report. Don't forget to get your Thursday night lineup in. And good luck to everyone this week. Have a great week, everyone. Talk to you next week.